What's up, runners? Cardio isn't your problem. Why you're failing the run, especially if you're a military police candidate or you're just trying to improve your fitness test, right? A lot of times you're thinking, scratching your head, is cardio the problem? Like, you train, you're in shape, but why can't you pass the run? Why do a lot of runners gas out halfway through their fitness test, even though they're not even breathing that hard? Maybe their legs give out. Well, I'm going to share a quick backstory in case you're brand new to my page. My name is Dr. Peralta. I'm a physical therapist and run coach. I've been in the field for almost 10 years now, helping runners get faster, get fitter, get stronger, helping them improve their fitness. And today we're going to talk about what's the main reason. A lot of runners, especially when they're running out of gas, the gas tank just runs out. What's the issue? And there's two things to look into. One is cardio fitness, right? Part of that, your heart and lungs. Right, so cardiovascular fitness, things that you go get tested on, especially hey, you're doing a fitness test, looks at your body's ability to consume oxygen and use that oxygen to just help power yourself aerobically. That aerobic fitness is usually measured with VO2 max test. You do that with an exercise physiologist or a field test. That 1 mile run test maybe you did in school, or that 1.5 mile run test for police, or like in the Army, it's a 2 mile run test. It just looks at your time to complete the test, so time to completion, and you'll get an idea of you could estimate your VO2 max from there, right? So example, if you run a 6-minute mile, you typically have a high VO2 max, usually like in the 50s, or it depends on your age and gender, but roughly in the 50s plus. That's a pretty high VO2 max. Now, there are people who have higher VO2 max. There are people who do 70 or even 80. Actually, one of the highest VO2 max is actually in Nordic cross-country skiers. But if you were trying to be scientific and direct about this, you need to get tested at a lab where they put apparatus to measure your oxygen intake, the oxygen and carbon dioxide in and out, to get your volume of oxygen consumption. Also, your height based on your height and weight. So your VO2 max, right? So yeah, cardiopulmonary exercise testing. That's the word we were looking for, cardiopulmonary exercise testing. But if you don't have access to that, you could definitely do the 1.5 mile run test, look up your age, your gender, the data table, and look at the numbers you get for your time of completion. And this is the type of fitness that dictates, hey, your ability to do aerobic fitness or aerobic workout. So strong cardio means good oxygen supply and efficient heart function, right? So cardio is like your delivery system of oxygen and how efficient your body can deliver that. But then there's a missing piece that a lot of runners, when they're trying to maintain their speed, why they gas out, why they can't hit the certain pace that they want, they can't maintain race pace. Yeah, sure, you could complete a mile run, but you're not able to complete it at the fast pace that you want, or the 2 mile, or even a longer distance. It becomes more obvious. And this is what is termed metabolic fitness, especially if you're trying to do a 5K, 10K, a marathon, half marathon. It's your muscle ability to efficiently use fuel and buffer waste products, right? Because as your body starts using ATP energy and breaking down glycogen and blood sugar and stuff, it starts building up waste product. And one of the things is how well your body uses energy as fuel, your metabolic efficiency, right? How well your body uses carbohydrates, carbs, usually sort of as blood sugar, and glycogen in the muscle and in the liver. And then how well it uses fats, your body fat. Your body can metabolize fat, but that's a slower process. But the more efficient you are, metabolic fitness and metabolic flexibility, that you can switch between fuel sources efficiently, will actually show how well you could perform as an endurance athlete. So nutrition plays a big part in this for sure. How you fuel yourself, and how well your body can switch between the different fuel sources. And if you just rely on eating junk food all the time, that's going to slow you down, definitely. But the other aspect is how your body uses fuel on the run, and part of that's your body's ability to process lactate as energy, lactate threshold, right? People think of lactate as just a waste product, but your body can actually reconvert lactate as energy. And the more efficient your body is able to tolerate just lactate buildup and also use some lactate as energy, part of your lactate threshold and stuff, also shows how long you can maintain your race pace, that tempo pace. People call this the tempo run pace, that tempo lactate threshold pace, where your body starts to fatigue, but you can still maintain that. If you cruise at tempo pace, the longer you are at, the fitter you are from a metabolic fitness level. So there's metabolic fitness and cardio fitness, right? So cardio fitness is like your just baseline speed, but then how long you can maintain the speed for distance is your metabolic fitness, right? So how long your engine can run under stress. Right, so let's compare the two. Metabolic fitness is the efficient use of energy, right? So that carbs and fats and that lactate build up in the body. While cardiovascular fitness is just just the heart and lungs, how well they can deliver oxygen and pump the blood through the muscles and the tissue. So that endurance, you want to maintain that metabolic fitness to keep your pace consistent. And then for like max speed, like the shorter speeds or the sprints is like, all right, how well the heart and lungs can, pump that oxygen through the muscles and the heart and lungs, of course. Right. So better metabolic fitness means how fast you can recover between intervals and also sustain that speed for long distance. But a high VO2 max, it doesn't always correlate. You could have a very high VO2 max, right? Maybe you could run a very fast mile, but then if you just burn out after the mile, right, that's not going to do you too well, right? You could have a super high VO2 max, but then you burn out after a mile because you don't have the metabolic fitness to sustain that for like 2 miles, 3 miles, etc. So you need that metabolic fitness. You need both, obviously, but metabolic fitness, if you don't have that, you're gonna have a very limited career, or you're not gonna have a fun time being a distance runner. And this is why a lot of military candidates struggle, right? They maybe only train their cardiovascular fitness, right? Sure, they can run a mile. Maybe they can run the 1.5 mile or 2 mile, but they're not able to maintain that top end speed, that metabolic, that threshold or tempo speed for distance, right? They may fatigue, crash and burn, and not because their lungs are lacking oxygen, just because their muscles are not able to process fuel and process that lactate threshold. Right. So if you're untrained, maybe you're a beginner to runner, you may just burn out your lactate threshold at 50 to 60% of your heart rate max. But if you're a trained endurance athlete, you're a trained runner, you could probably go up to like 85, 90, 95% of your heart rate max before you start redlining, that red line zone of threshold pace. Right. So obviously you have a higher, you go from here, like 50 to 60% to like a higher threshold when you're a trained athlete and trained endurance athlete. These where these runners can maintain, they could run, if you think about elite marathon runner, they could run almost like a 2-hour marathon at a 4-minute per mile pace. They're essentially sprinting the entire 26.2 mile run distance because their body's so efficient at using energy for fuel that they're not redlining, they're not fatiguing, they can maintain a super high workload. That 4-minute mile is a sprint, right? Even like the sub-elite, like the 5-minute, imagine maintaining a 5-minute per mile, speed for entire 26.2 mile. Like you're an elite runner if you could do that. And, even if you don't want to be the elite of the elite, even let's say you just want to pass your fitness test or like go on a 10-mile run with your buddies and not feel gassed out, having a good metabolic fitness in terms of your ability to hold that lactate threshold pace at a higher percentage of your heart rate max is going to really making the difference between you having fun and then you struggling, legs giving out, and your buddy having to like keep you company because you're not able to maintain pace. So how do you train that metabolic fitness, right? You do intervals at or near your lactate threshold. If you don't know your lactate threshold, one, you can get it tested with a blood lactate test. Sometimes you can find this at an exercise physiologist. Usually they're associated with universities, or sometimes some hospital systems have like a sports performance center where you get tested for your blood lactate threshold on a treadmill. So you do lactate threshold training while you're testing, They take your blood lactate and see at what zones your lactate threshold occurs. Now, if you don't have access to a lab, maybe you don't have access to a university or exercise physiology lab, you could also estimate it with a time trial. For example, 30-minute time trial or 60-minute time trial. 30 minutes more common. It's easier to do, of course. The 30-minute time trial, and then take your max pace and heart rate, and then see, okay, that last 10 minutes or so, what that was. And you can say, hey, that was about your threshold pace, threshold heart rate. And then kind of, there's some there's more information to this, of course, but then you can see, okay, that was your threshold pace. And then you could do different workouts around your threshold pace, threshold heart rate. And then you do that over time. Usually it takes about 6 to 8 weeks, but you'll start seeing that, hey, you can maintain threshold pace for longer. You can maintain it for different styles of workouts. Types of workouts I'm talking about, tempo runs is where you maintain, threshold pace, 20 to 30 minutes or longer. Hill sprints, right? So you do different hill workouts, track repeats, longer intervals. Maybe you do half-mile repeats. Maybe you do 1 kilometer repeats. There's different ways you could do threshold training with different longer intervals, and then a different zone training. Even on a long run, you could actually do a long run, maybe do the first half of the long run at an easy pace, and then the second half at like a tempo or threshold pace. And then obviously also doing strength training. Strength training is also very important for runners, especially so you build up your leg strength, but you can also combine strength training with your run training so you could have the best of both worlds and also improve your metabolic fitness. So the key is to train your engine to process fuel and clear waste better, those waste products. So if you've been running, you're like running out of gas, like, again, it's not even your lungs. It could just be that your legs are just giving out, your legs are tiring out too quickly. It's time to train smarter. If you need help with your training, like you really want to improve both your cardio fitness and your metabolic fitness, click the link. I have a free training here for runners to improve their fitness. And if you're like really like you really need help, you can also book a call at that link as well. Anyways, take care, folks.